So this is the entrance to the water at Lake Phoenix. Little dock here. This hill that you can walk down, a little gravel hill. I'm showing you right now just the concrete entrance to the dock, but for some reason butterflies congregate around here. You get a lot of these tiger swallowtails. Just love it here. Well, um, kind of like being in a Disney movie. Uh, and here I'm just wading in. There's a few rocks underwater, which you kind of got to watch out for. A couple big rocks in the this little entry lagoon area, if you want to call it that, next to the dock. You can see the water here is not looking too bad, not too stirred up. It's later in the afternoon, and most of the big classes that have been coming and going are no longer here. So the water's had a little bit of a chance to settle out. That's a pavilion up on the hill there. There's a number of these little metal roof pavilions with a few picnic tables under them, which the various shops have allocated to them. I think there's a few which are open for rental. So if you wanted to come down here with a club and rent a pavilion, you could do that. Notice this little walkway here in front leads down to a couple of little platforms you can stand on. They're 2 to 3 feet deep. So if you're giving a class or you just want to suit up and not stand in the gravel, you can do that here. Notice as the camera pans out over the surface, all the marker balls there. There, by the way, that's a fin ladder down below in front where, when people come to train, they can giant stride off the front of this dock. So if you are coming back and you're swimming by the dock, be mindful of the fin ladder. Somebody could possibly giant stride right off and right on top of you. So give that a little bit of a wide berth, and you should be okay. You can see the area around here, very nice wooded area. Um, so here's the little hill you walk down to get into the water. And notice all the rocks here. These rocks can be a little treacherous, so I've seen people fall. Pay attention to where you're walking, and there's roots here too sticking up. Some of those can get you, and even the pine needles can be a little slippery in places. So just pay attention and step carefully. You'll get there safely. Here's the selfie mirror, and next to it is a map of the quarry, which shows where all the various items are placed in the quarry for you to find. And then behind that is the benches. Now, this time of day, the benches were pretty empty, but in general, these benches can be real crowded early in the day and when a lot of classes are going on. So just be mindful. You might have a hard time finding a place to suit up by the water. Okay. This is a short video to try and show some folks what to expect if you jump into Lake Phoenix, which is a quarry about 39 miles north of the North Carolina-Virginia border on Interstate 85. Lake Phoenix is one of the major training facilities in that area, serves the Baltimore, Washington, and surrounding communities up north. A lot of other quarries in the area have been closed for various reasons, and it's one of the remaining well put together facilities. It has a dive shop on the grounds for fills and various supplies, and the quarry itself is well stocked with various things to find underwater. It's a good environment, as you can see here from the visibility, lots of fish, so the water's healthy, and the students really like the fact that the thermocline down around 30 feet gives them lots of room from the surface down to 30 feet to play in some fairly warm water in the summertime, And if you feel like putting on a wetsuit and hood and gloves, you can go below the thermocline and see some more stuff down to about 60, 65 feet deep in the quarry, and I'll show some of those things in the course of this video. So first thing I'm showing here is this is a little ship which is near the entry point. It's called the Oella, and it's got a line, as you can see, going from it to a little surface marker ball. There's a lot of those orange surface marker balls which you can see from the docks that show you various Easter eggs that are hidden here underwater in Lake Phoenix. There's another shot of the Oella from the other side on the ledge. So you can see that little piece of rope dropping off the side there. That's where the ledge is. It begins the drop from about 20, maybe 25 feet down into some of the slightly deeper area, around 35, 40 feet deep. There's the ledge right there. So in this shot, to the right would be the entry point, and to the left is the first drop off into the real quarry itself. So the next thing in the video here, this is the Pentagon, and it is a 9/11 memorial which was put together by Virginia SCUBA out in Manassas, Virginia. It's a series of I think 5 or 6 inch diameter PVC pipes held together by ropes, and makes a very interesting swim through. You can see from the sediment on this has been down here a couple years now, and it's nice to go through. You can see the rocks on the bottom here. If you wanted to do a little pull and glide kind of exercise here, you could pull yourself along, touching the rocks. They ask that you don't grab and pull on the rope or the pipes themselves, as it's not really, it's a good steady structure, but it's not really solid, so it's not a good idea to start yanking the ropes around and pulling on the PVC pipe. But this swim through is sort of towards the far end of the little Easter eggs that you would run into if you enter and then turn immediately to your right and head along the ledge here. It's about 30 feet deep, and usually still just fine for somebody that wants to stay above the thermocline or at the thermocline. So it's not too cold here. And I'm going along on a scooter through this. It's pretty wide, and no trouble really for divers to go through this single file. Shoulder to shoulder might be a little tight. I'm going to guess and say these sections of pipe are probably 4 to 5 feet long. I'll go ahead and cut this to the end. Oh, there we go. No need to cut it. There's the flag. So going through is that long flag at one end, flag at the other end. Tells you you're done. When you get past the Pentagon, you keep going along the line there, or if you go along the ledge, when you come up, you may see some leftover pieces from when they assembled it. When I first saw this, I thought, my goodness, that's the collapsed Pentagon. I didn't realize that it was further on, and I mistook that for something that had fallen down, but that's just spare parts which they had, or for one reason or another didn't use. So if you see that, keep going along the line and you will encounter the actual Pentagon here. The line coming from the Pentagon comes and hits a step van, which is down there. Once again, bottom's about 30 feet deep, so very diveable above the thermocline. You can see all the nice fish in here, indicating the health of the quarry. You know, the little breeding area in here. And the truck is in pretty bad shape, rust-wise, so lots of sharp metal edges in there. If you start poking around, be very careful where you put your hands. You don't want to get cut on the truck. There's a little logo from the SCUBA shop that donated the truck. The dive shop in Richmond, Virginia. And if you remember the front of the truck, you saw two lines tied to that bumper. One of them goes off into the deep area, goes down to the Miss Laurel boat, which I'll show later on in the video. Miss Laurel is the biggest boat that's in the quarry. I'm not sure how long it's supposed to be. Somebody said 35 feet, but I don't know. It seems a little smaller than that to me. Maybe not. And I do have a small light on the front of this camera, just to sort of fill in the gaps. So that's what you may see if you notice some stuff, some of the particulate in there being lit up. Just a little LED light attached under the camera. And this is the line which heads back to the towards, there's another small boat and what we call the campground. So here's the next boat. That line, of course, going back to the step van. We're still about 30 feet deep and very nice, very comfortable above the thermocline. And you can just sort of see some shadows out there behind the boat. We'll get to those in just a second here. Once again, you can see some of the young fish hanging out in these areas for safety. Keep away from the big guys who would eat them. There's our grill, so you can see the beginnings of the campground there. Another flag. And there's our tent and little facilities there. A couple apparently bored to death sitting on their little wicker chair. And behind them, you can't really see it too well, but they're around them is a little, or they're sitting next to a little fireplace. And there we just went over the jacuzzi. Some people like to move the skeletons around, sometimes put them in the jacuzzi. So when you pass the campsite, or if you're coming the other way before you get to the campsite, there's a lot of rocks piled up here, like a little bit of a breakdown area. And when you get past that little breakdown area, it's going to turn into sort of a mud flat there. So that's like the last of the rocks. And in that mud flat, there's a couple of different things, some statues and a school bus. And of course, we're coming up and you can sort of make out the statue of the horse there. Yeah, let's come up, good old horse's butt. But there's a little statue of a horse there. I say little, it's actually pretty big. You wouldn't want to try to pick it up, that's for sure. There was another statue, which you'll see in a few minutes, that I was small enough to pick up, and unfortunately somebody broke it. So if you do mess around with these things, please just don't pull on them or try and, you could break an ear off or something like that and kind of damage these things. They've been here a while. There's the horse. Nobody's ever named it to my knowledge. And near it are several other statues, and you kind of got to look around in the murk sometimes to spot them. That is the Chinese dragon, the little Chinese dragon statue in the sand there. It's a couple pieces. And then a little bit in front of the dragon, there should be, coming up here, a giraffe. Yeah, there's the giraffe. I'm not sure what that little Lego looking thing is. And we're still at 30 feet, so if you start to swim around the giraffe, you can find yourself getting a little shallow quick here. Amidst the statues is the bus, so, or all the way around, actually, the bus is amidst the statues. So little school bus down there, and if you go inside it, you'll see the seats have been taken out, so you can kind of do a little swim through. I'll give you a shot of that in a minute here. There's somebody swimming over top of it. It's a popular item for free divers too. There's lines on it which go up to little orange ball markers, and they can do a surface swim over to that area and then swim down here to the top of the bus, which is, I don't know, I guess about maybe 22, 24 feet deep. Bus's tires around 30. You can see the doors missing there. Once again, all little baby fish. It's kind of funny to go through the quarry and you see this stuff and it's a piece of junk, but this thing's repurposed now and provides a good habitat for the young fish. There's the bunny. That was the like Alice in Wonderland kind of rabbit, and somebody broke off his ears. So like I say, if you are in here and you come across the statues, please take care not to damage them. So I think this is me turning around with the scooter and coming back towards the back end of the bus. And if you turn away from the right side of the bus, there's an obelisk over there, and it's near the edge, but not quite on the edge. And we're still in that 30-foot deep plain. This can be a little hard to see sometimes. Like you can tell it's a little bit more kicked up over here. If there's a lot of classes running, a lot of students, sometimes they can get a little stirred up. And one of the things that I'm trying to do in this video is give you some sort of relative perspective of where these objects are related to each other. So this tells you, if you see this obelisk, and notice there's a brush at the bottom of it, by the way. You can unclip that brush and give it a quick scrub if some particulate's starting to make it dirty. Just give it a real quick shot, clean her up. But behind the obelisk in this 30-foot plain area is the bus, and then of course, beyond that's the statues and the campsite and so on. So knowing where these things are can kind of help you navigate the overall quarry. Another thing to remember in Lake Phoenix is that this is really primarily a training area. So you'll see a lot of classes coming through here. Various folks, anything from open water, advanced open water, rescue, even you may see, you'll see a surprising variety of gear here, including back mounted doubles, side mount, rebreather. So a lot of people use this area for practicing different skills and using different gear. So if you see a class like this, just try and stay out of their way if you're just there for, you know, a fun day. I was making this video, I missed, there's a couple cars, which I'll come back to, a couple cars just sitting in a shallower area. This is a little bit deeper, around I think like maybe 35 feet, if that. But it's right a little bit below the thermocline. You'll come across this boat. It's real close to the entrance area, so I've cut out a lot of the time which I spent just going through a kind of a wall area. There wasn't much to look at. But if you get down near the entrance and you head almost straight out from the docks, you may come across this boat at about 35 feet. Once again, you got a little marker buoy going up above it. But the main thing I use this for is for the lines on the back of it, because they take you directly to some very interesting things. So let's see if we can see those, make those lines out here. The line coming off to the right of the screen there takes you into the deeper area and will take you all the way over towards where this little boat and an airplane are. And the line coming off this side takes you to Miss Nettie, which is a boat that is sitting upright on its stern. So you can see Miss Nettie right there. Kind of just, somebody dropped her right on her butt. And Miss Nettie is the landmark which tells you you're very close to the helicopter. The other thing which kind of gives away the helicopter is this little payphone that's sitting on the bottom. Nice shiny silver box, which is easy to spot from shallower. But if you follow the line from that small boat over here to Miss Nettie, you'll see another line coming off Miss Nettie, about a 90-degree angle, headed back towards the wall. Oh, Ms. Nettie, sorry, not Miss Nettie, Ms. Nettie. And on a clear day, you might even be able to see the helicopter from right there. Yeah, you can just barely make it out. Now, this video, I think, was shot, I want to say, on a Saturday, late afternoon, when a lot of the bottom had already been kicked up. But there's the helicopter. I don't know what model helicopter that was. Somebody wrote Black Hawk something or other on it. I'm not familiar with the choppers, tell you what it is, but notice a little paint job there, Scuba Jam 2011. Every Labor Day, the Boy Scouts descend on Lake Phoenix and they have their Scuba Jam. And I have a lot of the commemorative t-shirts, so if you happen to be there and you want to buy one of the t-shirts, great. If you miss Scuba Jam, you can still go to the dive shop and they have Scuba Jam t-shirts for past few years up there. I think 2022 and 2021 were still available this past weekend. I don't know if anything earlier than that's there. The helicopters, you know, doors are missing and whatnot. You can swim into it and putz around, shine your light around in there. You might notice some disturbance in the video here. That is the thermocline. So the top of the helicopter is right about at the thermocline. You know, I got a little skeleton sitting there in the pilot's seat. Here you can see another class coming over to have a look at the helicopter. It's a popular attraction for the students. Notice the line on the ground there. That line will take you right back to Ms. Nettie. But the line also continues past the helicopter. And if you happen to be on a scooter going through here, watch your head going under things. They shouldn't have to. I'm assuming anybody that has a scooter has been diving for a while, so you know enough to avoid that. But if you happen to go under the helicopter, make sure you duck. Now, just past the helicopter is this little, maybe a Chevy or a GMC van. I'm not sure what it was, but a little van here. And like the step van, time has taken its toll on it. Some of the metal's rusting pretty bad, and there may be some sharp edges here. Little paddy van. You notice the line coming off of the bumper there. That line will take you into the deeper section. I think there's a few little things down there. Another small, it's like a short bus, golf cart. As you see, I mean, you can just swim through these things if you want to. No issues there. I'm gonna jump over to a slightly different area here. This is much closer to the dock and a bit shallower. And one of the things you can notice if you go off next to the dock, you may see this big log on the bottom as well as a rock. You're down at maybe 20 feet deep at this point. Microwaves there, some office equipment. I think a printer's there. But if you go just past that, a little bit shallower, in the rocks just behind this sort of pile of miscellaneous IT gear, you can sort of begin to make it out to the upper right corner. There's a sailboat there. And that's a significant sailboat. That's called the Replacements boat. And in the movie The Replacements, which I believe was about the NFL strike, there was a scene that was filmed here at Lake Phoenix back when it was called Lake Rawlings, and it featured this little sunken sailboat. So they have this thing here, and this is an area I like to go to for my safety stop at the end of the dive, because you can come out here and just lay sort of on the deck of this little sailboat, and or just swim around it, and just make some use of that 5 minutes or so that you'd normally spend sitting there on a platform. I'm not sure what that little quiver is. That might be me banging into something with the scooter. Banging into the boat. Now, give you an idea of some of the difficulty of making this little video. I have a very small camera for this. It's a Sony FDR X-3000, which is a good little 4K action cam. Comes with underwater housing, so you don't have to worry about buying a separate housing for this. And I think it's comparable to a lot of the features of the newer GoPros, and it came out before some of them. I think GoPro 7 might have been the one that was marketed when this thing came out. So in its day, it was a really good, really fine camera, and I still get a lot of good mileage out of it, I think. But as I'm trying to make this video, I'm sort of turning my scooter sideways and holding it in my hand and just trying to do a swim around the boat. It's a little bit easier than trying to keep adjusting the camera for the angle on the boat. Talked to some other folks that are playing with video, and this photogrammetry is apparently pretty popular, where people can take videos and convert them to single frame images, feed it into some sort of program which will make a 3D model based on the video. So that's kind of neat. And I gave somebody a video of this boat and they produced a 3D model from it, which looked kind of neat. Of course, like a lot of other things in Lake Phoenix, they have the required skeleton sitting on top there. I think there's a skeleton of a cat next to it. And the funny thing is, these things move around. So, divers will pick them up and put them somewhere else. And that nice, leisurely swim around it is just something to do with your safety stop if you want to stop at the replacement boat and you're done. Free divers also like this thing. It's a nice, easy thing for them to just swim down to, touch the top, and swim around, then head back to the surface. So this next part's a little out of order. This is the line which goes to the front of the Miss Laurel boat. There's another line which comes off to the side, and that goes up to the step van near the Pentagon. But this is the bow of Miss Laurel as it would look if you were approaching it from, say, 55 feet deep or so. Bottom here is about 60 to 65 feet deep. And you can see it's a pretty decent sized little boat. And it's a bit of a swim. I might have my little camera light on the front of the scooter, so there may be some light here, which you'll see in a few seconds to backlight this. This is cold. This is below the thermocline, so if you're going to go after Miss Laurel, bring your hood, bring your gloves. I was wearing, I think, a 5mm Pinnacle wetsuit at the time. It's pretty good in cold water. And by cold, I mean this. I think this water's 55, maybe. Might be a little warmer than that, but not much. Yeah, I can tell I got the LED light on. It's backlighting this pretty good. A lot of particulate down there. And I'm not on my best behavior, but I'm trying not to kick up the bottom in the shots here. And I think it pretty much shows there's not much going on where I've been. So I'm not kicking things up too much. There's the stern of the Miss Laurel. It's funny with all the particulate going through here, you'd think there's some sort of flow, but there isn't. This is a pretty straightforward quarry lake. I'm not sure if there's an outlet for the water or not, but I've not seen it. I don't know where the aquifer is either. My guess is if you ask at the front desk, they could tell you. Ask at the shop. That's the line in the right side of the screen that goes up to the step van. So following the line that went off the starboard side of the boat, you'll come across this little sort of like kind of like a jet ski kind of thing coming up here. You'll see it in a second or so. And it's kind of hard to see the line coming off the front of the jet ski. There is a line there, and you can barely make it out. It runs off a little ways into like a little bit of a vegetation which is down there. It surprises me because you're 60 feet deep here, and you wouldn't think a whole lot of light would get down here to support this kind of thing. But there's this sort of seagrass kind of field here, and when I go through it with the scooter, I got to be careful because if I bring the prop too low, this stuff will get sucked up into the prop and you'll get stuck in there. It's actually a pretty strong little plant. So I followed that line for a short bit and then it abruptly ended. And I kind of veered off a little bit to my right and I ran into the wall here, which was kind of fortunate because I know once I hit the wall, I can just hug that and make it back around until I see something familiar that tells me where I'm at. What I didn't know is right now I'm probably just below the airplane, just below and behind the airplane. I didn't look up, and the airplane would have been there probably about maybe 10, 15 feet above me. I know this because I ran across this boat next, and this little kind of was I don't know what it said there on the side of it, but this little boat here with a single line coming off of the bow, that boat marks my big landmark to get to the airplane because this line goes out and it tees. And I know if I follow that line to the left, that leads me straight to the airplane. And if I follow it to the right, it's going to lead me back over to the other side of the quarry. Not much to look at for this little guy. It's another boat that has River Rat written on this side. That's the same thing written on that small boat near the Miss Nettie. It used to have a top on it. Somehow the top got knocked off. Pakma boat? I don't know. I have no idea what that is. Anyway, following the line off the bow, you just go a real short ways, and there's the T I was talking about. Now, I'm not interested in going to the airplane just at this point in time. I have good video of the airplane I will splice in a minute here, but this is just going off kind of into the murk across the deep section, and it will take you back to that other little boat that says River Rat. But there is one kind of interesting landmark along the way here. Let's see how long before we get to it. Should be coming up in a second here. Along the way, you'll see these little buckets full of concrete to help keep the line down. But there he is. So this is something which I call the two-faced clown. And it's this little pedestal with something slightly bigger than a basketball on top of it, a little clown face wearing a hat. And you see they got one face on this side, and as we go around him, yeah, you'll see he has a face on his other side also. looking at this video, I'm tempted to grab a brush and come back down to the bottom and just clean some of these things. Anyway, there's the line which continues on past our little two-faced clown. So at some point as you're going along the bottom here, about 50 feet deep, 60 feet deep, the line turns and starts heading up at a fairly steep angle, and it's going to bring you up to right about 30 feet. And you're going to realize that if you're on the other side and you're somewhere around 30 feet, you're on that same ledge where the helicopter was. And so if I didn't make it clear, the other river rat boat's on the opposite side of the quarry from the helicopter. So here we're coming up to the first river rat boat with that line that's going to go back off to, Miss Nettie's there again. So this kind of helps you navigate a little bit of the bottom of the quarry. And then, of course, you go past that, and once again, you're going to be right back at the helicopter. Now, this is an interesting shot because, here you can see someone diving a rebreather. The guy's name's Matt, and Matt's got a Poseidon rebreather on there, just doing his training, and diving with a buddy who has a single tank on, probably an aluminum 80. So yeah, quite a spectrum of gear here to see. And at this point, what I'll do is I'll make a cut back to the cars. So if we were to roll the video and go back past Ms. Nettie and past that little river rat boat and go back up a little shallow towards the entry point in the quarry again, we'll come across a couple of cars. So let's see what happens here. I think we'll see them in a second or two. Yeah, there's one of them. Okay. So various safety and first responders train in the quarry here, and I believe it was the police department that pulled a couple of cars that were here out and then dropped some fresh cars in. And this is the two cars which they've left in the lake for divers to play with. Shallow here, once again about 20, maybe 25 feet. There's a line going up to the orange ball on the surface. Lots of little fish here. I don't know what this one is. There's a bunch of little bait fish swimming around there. Coming off it, that little PVC pipe thing is a buoyancy swim through, aid for people that are training, learning how to be a little better with their trim and their buoyancy in the water. And then here's the second car. You can just begin to see it a little bit shallower. I think this is the Elantra. Little little pontoon boat right behind it sitting on the bottom. There's a couple of those in the quarry. One of them's down deep. If you come off the nose of the airplane, you will hit a pontoon boat identical to this one, and it's about 60 feet deep. This particular platform, pontoon boat acting as a platform, is I think about 18, 20 feet deep. You can tell from the lighting. You see the little shimmering from the sunlight coming in through the little bit of ripple overhead. We're very shallow here. So I'm taking you back to the front of that little river rat boat. I mentioned the line T's, and earlier I went to the right. Now here I'm going to the left, and my dive buddy Mohammed's with me, and we're headed towards the airplane. So this is like the last, I think the last major thing that I wanted to cover in the video. So if you just come off the bow of that little river raft boat and turn to your left, once again, 60 feet deep, cold, and Mohammed's testing his new light there, so you'll see a little light beam shine out once in a while. And you can just barely make out when I look up the bottom of the airplane. Now this is not as good a video shot as I had from the scooter, because this is actually a helmet mounted camera which I have that I wear for hands-free video, and unfortunately if I'm wearing that I generally tend to look down. So there's the nose of the airplane coming into view. There used to be a line off the nose going all the way across the quarry to the other side, and that line was removed in favor of one which you can kind of see the maybe slightly brighter line at the bottom heading off screen to the right, and that goes all the way across the quarry almost to the wall, but not quite. There's a pontoon boat down there which that line terminates at, 60 feet deep. So there's Mohammed heading up to the airplane. Give you an idea of the size of it. It's not that big of a plane, but it's not exactly a Cessna either. A little tiny thing. It's I think it was used by a fire department. There's a logo on the other side of the aircraft that tells you the name of the fire department. Stafford County, maybe. Not a big person on Virginia geography. I'm not sure if that's the name of the county or not, but of course the engines are missing. Plane's been stripped. Anything they dump in these quarries, they tend to want to sanitize and pull out any environmental hazards or anything related to oils and motors and hydraulics. I believe they pull out. This is odd. I can see earlier I commented about going along the wall and probably passing right under the airplane. So unless you are looking up and the visibility's fairly good that day, you can miss this thing. A little creepy baby stuffed in the back of the airplane. There's Mohammed cleaning off the logo for that fire department. Brook Volunteer Fire Department. And you can easily climb around inside the airplane the same way you could the helicopter. It's a little bigger inside than the helicopter was. and once again the bottom about 60 feet. So the top of the airplane 40 to 45 below the thermocline and cold. The rope, which looks cleaner than the other, there's two coming off there, one going to the left, and then actually they're both kind of going to the left. That one going out there looks a little more white than the other is the one that leads to the pontoon boat, and we'll take you across the bottom of the quarry back towards the entrance. And that about finishes this video. So hopefully help somebody to see what to expect if they go to Lake Phoenix. Hopefully help you navigate to a few different things, give you some landmarks relative to each other. So good luck and safe diving.